Hi there, I'm Becky from Meditate School of Mindfulness, and in this video I'm going to give you some basic instruction for how to use tuning forks in your session and how I set things up to make things a little bit easier. So when I start a tuning fork session, I have my client laying face up or face down depending on what I'm going to be doing, but most of the time I will start them out face up. And then I have my setup over here. I always have my tuning forks and things set up ahead of time. That way, during the session, I'm not fumbling around for tuning forks that I want to do or not. So I have my unweighted, I have my weighted, I have my blocks. I have, this is another thing that you can use for your tuning forks instead of banging them on the blocks. You can hit them with this. And then also in a tuning fork session, if you are using weighted tuning forks, and we learned about weighting tuning forks in the slideshow and in the paperwork, but if you're ever using a weighted tuning fork on a stiff joint or something like that, or a muscle or someplace that's really sensitive, sometimes this end here is just a little bit too much. So you also might want to invest in some of these little ends. They have little holes on them and they just slide right on to the end. So they take that vibration and instead of making it so sharp, it softens it a little bit. So I always have a couple of these around also just in case I need to kind of soften anything that I'm doing with someone. Because one thing I want you to remember is that you always need to check in with your client to make sure that everything you're doing is feeling okay. So, all right, so we're going to get into a session now. And the first thing that I do is whenever I'm doing a session, whether it be I do skincare and I work with people doing sound healing. So whether it's any of those things, I always make sure that I ground myself. I am an old school massage therapist, so I kind of do this automatically. But one of the things that I do is I take a minute, I take a deep breath in and out, and I picture myself as having roots in the ground. I am very grounded and centered. I try to let everything that's going on around me go. Now, in a tuning fork session, one of the other things that I do is that I like to advise my clients to do the same. I also envision kind of a sphere of light around me to protect me from any bad energy. Also, by doing that, it also helps me from stealing someone else's energy or someone else stealing my energy. If someone's tired, if someone's having a bad day, and you're working in their energy field, sometimes because they need that energy, they need that, maybe they need your calm or your, without even knowing it, they can kind of siphon off your energy. So along with the grounding, I picture a sphere of light. Some people say they picture a white light or a blue light or a golden light, purple light, whatever light resonates with you. There's no rules here. This is just what I do for my grounding. If you have other things that you do for your grounding and protection, now would be the time to do that. So when I'm working with my clients, to get them to ground, and then I also like to connect with my clients. I take a minute for us to connect because I am very empathic and this work can be very empathic. So you want to take a minute just to connect in with everything that you're doing. So, okay, Mary, I'm going to have you take a big, nice, deep breath in and out. And take one more deep breath in and exhale. And now I want you to just breathe normally. And as you're laying here breathing in and out, I want you to become aware of any tension that you might be holding in your mind or your body. And just feel all those things relaxing and letting go. Imagine this breath as it enters in, it gets into all those places that you need to relax. And as you exhale, all that stress just melts away. I'm just going to take a minute. I'm going to touch your chest, your crown of your head, just nice and gentle. as you're laying here, I want you to imagine that you have a sphere of light surrounding you. It can be any color that resonates with you. I just want you to imagine that it covers your entire body. And it's your bubble to keep out bad energy. It's your bubble of grounding and healing. And imagine that it stretches out from your body just a little bit so that it covers even your energetic body. And now I'd like you to take a minute and just imagine this golden light kind of starting in your chest. And I want you to imagine that that golden light reaches out from you, from your heart center into my heart center. And I'm going to imagine that I have this same light from my heart center into your heart center. This session, I want you to just breathe nice and easy, and I want you to let me know if there's anything that we're doing that is uncomfortable or that just doesn't, if the tuning forks get too close to your ears and they bother you, I want you to let me know. Otherwise, you just need to lay here and take it all in, okay? All right, so to start my sessions, I always start my sessions with my unweighted forks. One of the first things that I like to do is I like to take, in this set that I have here, let me backtrack. I'm going to be using the harmonic set, which is basically tuning forks that line up with all the chakras. And then it has an 8th fork, which is a root, which is a C. So there's a low C, but then this set also includes a high C. And that is a very calming, it kind of really grounds the energy. It is something that I start and end my treatments with. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my low C fork, and I'm going to pick up my high C fork, and I'm going to work through her energy body while doing this. I want to clear out and ground anything that's going on in there before I get into anything. So I always step back away from the body. When you chime a tuning fork, you want to chime, whether you're banging it on a block here or you're chiming them together, the upper third portion of a tuning fork is where you want to chime it at. We've covered this in our first session, but I just want to reiterate this little third section here, okay? So I always step away, because if you go boom and you chime it over someone, it can be kind of startling. So, and I do also let my clients know that I am going to start chiming and doing the work, okay? All right, Mary, I'm going to chime some forks and we're going to get started. So as I do work through the energy body, you can do any sort of movements. I like to chime the forks together when I do these things, because even the chime of them coming together is very harmonizing and beautiful. So I kind of fluff up the energy. Sometimes I might move it back and forth, or you can do some rolling motions. You can also do some sweeping motions. So you could sweep in through here, sweep the energy down. We're just going to get her energy moving. Now, as you work with tuning forks, you're going to build up a sensitivity in your fingertips. You're also going to build up a sensitivity in your ears. And it's something that I want to encourage you, just like any other sound healing instrument, you have to work at it a little bit to get to know. So you're going to be feeling this vibration. You're going to be hearing it as well. When you're chiming through the energy body, if you come to any spots where the forks stop vibrating or you stop hearing sound, that is an area that you want to focus on when you get into your sound healing sessions. So as you're doing this, you don't want to be talking. You really want to be focused and paying attention on what you have going on. So I do this for a couple minutes. And then I usually take it and up through the center. Okay. All right. So then what I do is I'm going to start out with doing some unweighted work at the ears. Most of the stuff that I do for weighted forks is in the energy body and then right here around the ears. The weighted forks are going to be the tuning forks that you use on the body. For weighted, you're mostly, or for unweighted, you're going to want right here, okay? So, for a lot of the work that I do, the low C is going to be your constant note. In most protocols that I've looked at, in most training that I've done with the tuning forks, the C is usually the constant note, and then every other tuning fork comes into play around that. So I'm going to take my C tuning fork in one hand, and then I'm just going to pick up, for this one, I'm going to do the D, and I'm going to work my way through. So I'm going to do D, E, F, G, and then A and B in this motion. So I'm only going to demonstrate maybe 1 or 2 cycles of this, but what you would do is you would work through all of your forks in the fashion that we're going to do with this, okay? So I have my low C in one hand, I have my D in the other. I'm going to chime them, and you can also, use your little mallet. You can use a mallet, or you can even use this. And you're going to start out and then bring the forks into the ears. And you're going to just bring them in. Is that an okay? That's not hurting your ears or anything, is it, Mary? Mm-hmm. Just until you feel the forks getting ready to stop vibrating. Then you move them out. And you're going to do this 3 times with the same forks in each hand. And then when you're done with that, you're going to keep the same forks, but you're going to switch hands. That way they're getting both things on each side. That's where that entrainment comes in. So they're left feeling balanced, okay? And with these forks, you're not going to hear a ton. They're going to hear a lot, but you won't. You're really paying attention to the vibration in the handles. Now, when working with these forks, I want you to remember that in this center portion here, there's no sound. How the tuning forks vibrate against each other and vibrate out, this noise cancels, these vibrations cancel each other out. So when you do bring the tuning forks in, you want them to be at a slight angle, just so that, I want you to it would be great if you could take these, chime them, and use them on yourself, and kind of do this little motion, and you'll hear how you want to, you'll get a feel for how you want to hold the forks up to the ears. Because if you do them too like this, you're in that dead spot, okay? So mess around with the forks. Again, just like any other healing instrument we've spoken about, mess around with it, see how it goes. So now that I've done it, switch the forks, I'm going to keep my low C. I always start out with the low C in my left hand, by the way. I'm going to put the D back, and I'm going to grab the next one in a row. Now, by doing this, you're kind of working those musical intervals that you should have read about in your tuning fork module already. We're going from harmonious sounds to disharmonious sounds to harmonious sounds to disharmony to harmony to disharmony. And by doing that, we are moving stagnant energy. Harmony is really beautiful, it's very calming, it's very peaceful, but there's a lot of energy movement and a lot of clearing and a lot of healing that happens in the notes that don't necessarily sound super great together. So you're going to start with your C and you're going to work up in order. So some of the forks may not sound super 100% harmonious and amazing together, but that is the point, okay? So then we're going to slowly move them in. You still doing okay, Mary?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to switch hands. So now my C is in this hand, my E is in this hand. And this isn't going to take minutes. It doesn't take long for the forks to kind of do their thing. Now, even though I can't feel them vibrating, if I hold them up to my ears, I can still hear them. So you want to start taking them away when you stop feeling the vibration, so the client will still be hearing them. You know that it's getting time to take them away, okay? So then I would move my C back to my left hand, and I would grab my F note, my G note, work down to my A and my B. Now when I'm done working through that cycle, what I will finish with is the high C and the low C. So I don't incorporate the high C in the rotation until the very end. So when I'm done with that whole rotation, I'll do the high C in one hand and the low C in the other. And then I will switch them up. I'll do 3 more times. And then for this portion, we're done. So this is how I always open my sessions, is I walk them through, and this is vibrating and balancing and clearing all the chakras, all the energy centers of the body, which is exactly, what we're going for, is moving energy and getting things flowing and working, okay? So now, the next thing that I do is, in the paperwork for the module, you do have some protocols. There's some protocols that were kind of, they came together from a gentleman named John Bolio, I think his last name is, and he is kind of one of the founding fathers of tuning forks. And he put together a bunch of different protocols of different intervals of tuning forks that really help to balance different areas of the body, okay? So I normally have I have some little cheat sheets. So I made you up some charts in the module information. You can print those off and you can laminate them. That's what I do. And I have them nearby. I have them on my countertop, or I'll have them, and I will use those for different protocols. So, some of the things that they have for the protocols are like nervous system balance and well-being, motivation, increasing creativity, life direction, calming anxiety, quality sleep, digestive balance, loss, grief with overthinking, loss, grief with anger, grounding. So you also can be intuitive about this and make up your own protocols. As you get to learn the chakras and the energy centers and how things balance and work, you can make up your own protocols for anything based on what your client is going through. This chart is just a great starting off point. So based on the chart, I'm going to do digestive balance. Mary here is my mom. We just went to breakfast, so we're going to do a little digestive balancing, okay? So in the digestive balance, and in the chart that I gave you for the protocols, you'll see the C listed on the left-hand side. Again, that low C is the constant, and then you're just adding forks in, and then you're going to switch them up. So with this digestive balance, you start out with a C and an E, then you move from a C to an F, then you do low C, high C, then a C to G. And in every single one that we're going to do them on each side 3 times, switch hands 3 times, okay? So I'm only going to do, I'll probably run through the whole protocol here. We might as well. So C and E fork, then I'm going to switch them. And I would do this 3 times, okay? Then I would move on to the C. I would, move my C back, and then you go into C and F, and then C and C, and you would do it that way. Now, say that she was coming in with anxiety, I would probably do the protocol to calm anxiety, and then maybe also to calm her nervous system. So you could do 2 or 3 different protocols here. It's completely up to you. It's completely up to your consultation that you had with your client. It's completely up to how much time you have. So all of this plays a factor. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how those protocols work, how the tuning forks work, and kind of how you want to hold them, and that your C note is probably going to be your constant. So, okay. So the next thing that we're going to get into are weighted forks. Now, weighted tuning forks, as we know, they have these weights that are molded onto the end. And these, you're not going to hear as much, but you feel them on the body more. So these are going to be a great way to vibrate energy into the body, okay? So with these tuning forks, you want to kind of strike them right here on this little hole. And I just tend to chime my weighted tuning forks off my palm, or you can also do them off of your knee. They also have like little leg straps that have like a little, it's almost like a rubber plate where you can also do that. You can also use these, but I find it's just easier just to use my body in some way. You want to make sure that when you chime these together, you're not chiming them together so much that they bang together in the middle here. With a lot of these, that's really hard to do. With this auto tuning fork set, OTTO, they're osteopathic tuning forks. And these are specifically, there's 3 of them, and they were developed to be used specifically on the body. The only one that you might have a hard time with not chiming together is this bad boy. He's very flexible because he's very long, but you're going to be using this tuning fork not touching the body, just very close to the body, so you don't need it to vibrate. You're not going to be putting this point-wise on the body, so you don't need to get it super going. You just want it, and you'll hear if I chime it too much, you hear them bang together. You really do want to avoid that, okay? So just enough to get it going, but not enough for it to bang and chime together, okay? So with this auto tuning fork set, there's 128 hertz, 64 hertz, and then 32 hertz, and they each do different things. In your module paperwork, you do have a chart on this too, and where these forks are used, okay? So I'm only going to show you one fork for right now, and the other forks are basically used in the same manner, just used in, they're good for different parts of the body. So with this 128 hertz, you can use it on the sternum here. But you also can use this on any stiff joints, any painful areas that the client is having, anything like that. So when I'm working on a client, I will chime this, I will find a point. And when you do tuning forks, you want the tuning fork to kind of be positioned, as you can see, away from me. And I'm not pushing in too hard. I'm actually using this position of it being facing away from me. That's what puts the pressure into the body. I'm not pushing down. And then you want to hold your finger over the point where you just put the tuning fork, because you want to do this 3 times and you want to try to do it in the same space. So I put my finger where I had it. I'll chime my fork on my knee, and then I'm going to put it back there. And I'm trying not to touch too much of this part of the tuning fork because I really want it to vibrate in there. And then again, just before I feel it stop vibrating, I'll put my finger there. I'll use my knee. But I am not adding any weight to this tuning fork. I'm letting this position do it for me, okay? And even though I've done this 3 times, I'm going to put my finger here because I want to move up, so I want to remember where I was. And so I would just keep moving up the sternum, kind of doing this same motion. Now, also with this weighted tuning fork, say, Mary used to work a lot with her body. She has some arthritis in her hands. She also always has some stuff with her elbows, shoulders. So if you're ever working on, someone, so I'm going to work here. And then I would work this point 3 times. I would work this point, work all around the area that she's experiencing trouble. If it was the elbow, I would work here on all of that. And you want to do each point 3 times. If she has some arthritis stuff, say she has some, I would work, put my finger down, and I would do 3 times around any stiff joints, any problems. Now, if you're ever working like up here in the shoulders, after you work on the shoulder, what you're going to do is you're then going to chime your fork and you're going to move that energy down the arm this is kind of grounding the energy out. So even if you're just working on an elbow, you would then work, and this just acts as you've got this energy moving, you've got it, and then by moving your fork and just 1 point at a time down, you're grounding that energy. Now say that Mary, she's got a little arthritis in her knees. I'm going to chime. So let's say we're going to work here. I would do each point 3 times, okay? And then really what I would do is to work on the outside of her knees, I would come over here because I want that tuning fork away from me. So I would come over here and I would work all these points. But then, when I'm done with that, I'm going to take this fork down this muscly and I'm going to move it all the way down to her toes, because that's going to take all this energy that we've worked on and ground it out. If you're with these auto tuning forks, with this one here, the 64 hertz, this is for use on the sacrum, the low back. This is for use on, you can use it out into the glutes for sciatic issues. When you're working anything low back, you can actually use it even around shoulder blades. You can use it down the sides of the spine. Any of those things. You're still going to take that fork, do the work you need to do, but then you're going to work down the outside of the leg to ground the energy. So always remember, try to keep in mind that when you're working, no matter what you're working on, you want to take the energy and you do want to move it and ground it out, okay? So with this fork, this is a 64 hertz. You would have a face cradle cover on your, or face cradle on your table. You would have your clients flip over, and then you would use this like we did on the sternum, all along the sacrum. You could do it up and around the hips. You can do it down the legs. You can do it around the shoulder blades. Like I said, any place that they're experiencing any low back stuff. And you would use it just as we did here. You work the points, stick your finger, use the point, stick your finger, use the point, so that you're hitting each point 3 times and then always ground out the energy. So with these, you just want to make sure you're using the right fork in the right place. And, you know, it's going to be all about proper techniques. So, you know, with those other, you know, you're going to work, put your finger, work, and then you're going to ground out the energy. And so we'll get Mary flipped over. I'll show you how to use this on the sacrum and down the leg. And then the next thing, before we do that, I'm going to show you this one here. So this is the Big Daddy. This is used for lymphatic movement, so lymph flow on the body, but it's also going to be used for around the sutures of the skull, okay? So with this one, you're going to, I'm just going to almost touching her body, and the lymph points are in the groin for the legs. And so I worked each leg 3 times, and you're just going to get close to the body, and then I'm going to work the other leg where I'm working up, okay? And I would do that 3 times. Then I do, oh, see, got a little too overzealous there. Then I'm going to work the arm up into the armpit points, and I would do this 3 times. Then I'm going to do this. Up into the armpit. And then I tend to work, you know, very close up and down. I do this a bunch of times. And then I'm also going to work the sutures here. But then I also will take this, because I know in all of my studies that kind of down around the ears and into this drainage point. So I move everything after I work the sutures down, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side, because your lymph drains into your clavicle points here. So I'll work down into the clavicle points and down into the clavicle points. So I finish with this one. So I would do all of her stuff. I would have her flip over, do all the back stuff, have her flip back over, and then finish with this, and then finish with some unweighted forks. So we're gonna get Mary flipped over, and then I'll show you how all of that works on the back side. Okay, so we've got Mary flipped over now. One thing I'm gonna say is, you know, when you're doing the tuning forks in the ears, you most likely will be sitting down. When you have your client flip over, or if you're doing them side lying, always make sure that you lift up your table so that you are comfortable working. You don't want to be too hunched over. You don't want to be too, because then you're going to start straining your body as well. So I am fortunate enough to have my own spa. I have a table that lifts up. You don't have to have a massage table with a face cradle. You could do this work sitting down. You can do it side lying. If you have a mat on the floor, you would just have to get down on the floor to work with your client. So if you're going to do a lot of tuning fork sessions, I would recommend getting a massage table if you can, or getting some sort of place where you are able to work comfortably with people, okay? So right now we're going to use the 64 hertz fork, and this is good for working around the sacrum, in the sciatic area. If she had any, which she does, because she was in nursing and she would have to lift people and move people and all of this. So she takes, a lot of strain in the muscles here. So I'm going to chime the fork and I'm going to do just a little investigating. I'm not getting too personal, but I'm going to investigate because I want to start at the upper part of the sacrum. And so then I keep my finger there. And I'm not really putting my fingers, I'm leaving my fingers here just as a little support, just in case the fork slips, but I'm not touching the fork with these fingers, just leaving it. And then you're going to do that three-pronged approach. The fork is facing away from me. I'm not putting any pressure. The fork is putting pressure. And you can feel that, right, Mary?
Yeah.
Does it feel like it's too sharp or too much?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Now, if Mary would have said that she felt like, if she has real bad low back problems or she has sciatic problems, sciatic deals with the nerves. Sometimes that can be a little sharp. So what I would do is at that point, if she said, yeah, that's a little uncomfortable, I would then take my little end, I would put it on there, and then you're going to work it exactly the same way. You're going to put it on there. It just spreads out so it's not so sharp, okay? So then I'm going to work down. You're only going to work so far down on the sacrum. So I would do this 3 times. Now, what I would normally do then is I would come back and I'd work up and around the hips. And then I would work out into the glutes, and I'm just gonna fast track. We're on fast forward here, but so then I would work each point out through here 3 times, okay? And again, you don't want to do too much. This is very powerful. That vibration is going down into those muscles, into those bones, into those tissue. So if you're trying to break stuff up 3 times on each point, working your way down through is more than enough, okay? So when I'm done with that, I'm not going to forget that I then want to move that energy down to ground it out. So then I would go ahead and I would move over to the other side. And with this side here, you probably would want to work opposite side. I'm standing on this side for filming purposes, but if I was going to work this side, I would be standing over on that side of the table. So to work this side, because you want that tuning fork facing away from you, and you don't want to have to do a lot of work. You don't want to have to bend weird or do anything like that. So I'm going to just move here, and then I would move around, and then I kind of divide the glutes up into like 3 little, and then I would work this way, and then I would move the energy down her leg and ground that out, okay? So then if I was working this side, I would move to the other side of the table so that that tuning fork can be facing away from me. Now when I work the sacrum, I worked up here because I can put that tuning fork away from me up here. So now let's say that I wanted to work around her shoulders. So I would just do 3 different points around the shoulders. You could do along, I wouldn't recommend doing this directly on the spine, but you can work these muscles that go up and down the side of the spine. So you could work 3 points there. What I would say is if you're doing any work, say from here up, you would then take that energy and ground it down the arms. And if you're doing any work from here down, you would then take that energy and move it down the legs and the arms, or the legs into the feet, okay? So tuning forks can be used for so many different things. You don't always need a bony place to put the tuning forks. You can actually use them kind of on the belly where there isn't, you just want to be careful about pushing it in there. But for the most part, the most conduction you're going to get out of a tuning fork and into the body is going to be on bone. Most places that you're going to work on, there is underlying bone. So I'm working here around the shoulder blade, but there's ribs under here, there's her shoulder blade under here. You know, we're hitting all of these, the spine bones are all conducting. So most of the time, even out here into the glutes, you're on the muscle which is conducting, but underneath that muscle is bone down into those layers. So for the most part, every place you're ever going to work is going to have bone. That being said, if you do have someone having belly issues, you could just work down and make sure that you're putting the fork on a rib or something like that, and that those ribs will vibrate, and then you could do hips and that will vibrate. So most of the time you can find a nearby bony prominence to work this area that has no bone in there, okay? So the last thing we're going to do, we're going to get Mary flipped back over, and then we're going to finish up with another session of working the tuning forks through the energy field. But I'm going to show you that when I finish, I usually am holding 3 or 4 tuning forks at the same time, and I'll show you how that goes and explain how that all goes. So we're going to get Mary flipped over, and then we'll get into that. All right, so now that we have Mary turned over, we've worked all the points that we want to work in our session, and we want to close the session down. The cool thing about tuning forks is because of the harmony and the disharmony, you can then have a bunch of different forks. So I usually hold 3 forks. It's about all my little hands can hold. And then I have my C, my low C. So I have D, E, and F here. So I want some harmonizing notes, but I'd like a little disharmony in there as well, because we've moved a lot of energy, and now we're really just going to get everything flowing within the aura. So I want to do all sorts of things. So there is some power in just doing one note at a time, because then you're kind of, but then also you can harmonize them all at the same time. So I always start at the crown of the head, and I'll work my way down. And you can use whatever notes you want. These are just the ones I grabbed. And you will get a feel for all of this. But her energy is flowing really nice. The forks are really singing for her. And after the work we've done, you can just feel that she's a little bit lighter. So then I'm going to take all this and kind of start. And as I do this, I picture that I'm kind of dragging her energy and just grounding it out. And you can do this for as long as you feel like you want to, and I'll kind of work out here a little, because the energy body isn't just tight to the body. So I sweep it down. And then again, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this high C. And with this for sure, I'm going to move. I like to symbolize throwing things down into the ground. But whatever symbology works for you with doing massage. Sometimes after you are done doing a massage, you take your hands and you throw that energy down into the ground. So that's just kind of, I picture the energy rolling off the forks and giving it up to Mother Earth. So I will usually do this close down with these 2 forks. A couple of times. And then the last thing I do is I bring them together. And I'll switch hands, bring them together. And this just grounds and closes everything down. And then the last thing that I do is, all right, Miss Mary, I'd like you to take a nice big deep breath all the way in and exhale with a sigh. And I want you to imagine that as you lay here breathing in and out, you feel this air entering in and connecting you into the harmony of your heart space. And as you connect into that heart space, you really feel the connection to your authentic self. I want you to sit and pay attention to this feeling that's in your heart center, this calm and peace and connection, this harmony. And I want you to leave here and carry this with you throughout your day, throughout your life. Whenever life gets hectic or you feel like you need to take a deep breath, remember how this sensation feels in your heart center, and remember that you have the ability to come back to this feeling anytime. As you lay here breathing in and out, I want you to imagine that your body and your mind, your spirit awakens. It's been calm and relaxed. I want you to feel nice and grounded and awake. And we're going to take one more deep breath in and out, and as you do, I want you to imagine that this deep breath in and out fully wakes you up and reconnects you with your body. And when you feel ready, open your eyes, and here you are. Thank you so much for watching this instructional video. This is a very basic layout of how to do things. If you want to know any more about tuning forks, if you want to become a tuning fork therapist, if you want to dive into, you want to work with tuning forks because they resonate with you so much, which is how they do with me, take more classes. This is definitely a starter class. This is a great way. These things that I've taught you, these fork sets, the stuff that's in your module paperwork, this is a great start, and you can definitely work with people with all of that information. But there are so many classes out there and so many amazing practitioners that are doing amazing things with tuning forks. The world is your oyster, so go out there and learn and practice and anything that you possibly can. Also, if you have any questions or you want to reach out to me, you have my information in this course, so don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have anything else that you'd like to know. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.